Know why my screen is blue now. That's weird. Uh, Hello and welcome to the Granny Handicap live stream. Tonight I'm going to start doing just chat format. So I am not let's see. Let me change my stream info. All right. Okay, I'm going to leave that. Okay. I'm gonna change my stuff. Category, just chatting. So I am literally just getting set up now. Okay, I'm going to take out casual playthrough, beginner players, achievement hunting. Okay, so I've got family friendly, mental health. Okay, done. All right, so I have changed my stream info to reflect that I am not gaming. I am open to everyone to talk with me about disability, and this is the first night of that format, so things are a little disorganized and crazy around here. But let's see, I need to change my stream elements. I am not streaming Forza Horizon 4. So anyway, I need to so I am just chatting. So if anyone wants to join me and chat with me, I am available and I will answer any questions you have about disability and how that affects normal life. 1/5 of us in this country, in the United States, are disabled. But I welcome people from other countries to share their points of view as well. This is an inclusive live stream, so all I ask is people be respectful. No hate speech at all is tolerated. I want everyone to just have a good time here with me, and whatever you want to say, please say it without cuss words and without referring to bathrooms and bedrooms. That's my only rule. So let's begin. I am going to make I'm going to go on my Facebook, and here's some of my research. Oh, I don't want to do that. All right, I don't want to do that. Let's see. All right, I don't want to do that. Oh, got all this stuff up here that I shouldn't have. All right, I'm going to go to Facebook and oh, all right. Forget you said that. Oh, I guess I'm not going to be going on Facebook. Technical problems. All right. Goodness. My Facebook is Dana Stories. If you want to contact me there, you are welcome to. I will admit I don't get on Facebook much, so but my main social outlet is Twitter. My Twitter is Dana Stories, and it is on my Twitch page. I have direct links to all of my social media on my Twitch page. So I am coming to you live from Twitch, and I am hoping that some folks will come in and chat with me. But what I will do right now is go to my Twitter and see what the news is about, and that will determine what I talk about while I wait for people to come talk to me. So, my man Marcus Flowers is saying our country isn't safe with Marjorie Taylor Greene in Congress. I could not agree more. Marcus Flowers is running against her in the election, and I plan to vote for him. But anyway, okay. Ooh, the NASA astronomy picture of the day is a Perseid meteor and the Milky Way. It's beautiful. I encourage you to get NASA picture of the day if you want to. President Biden is saying we're doing everything we can to get more people vaccinated. In the past 2 weeks, we've seen a 55% increase in the average number of new people getting vaccinated every day. In the last 7 days alone, nearly 3 million Americans have gotten their first shot. Yay! I have 2 relatives in the hospital right now, one of them dying, and the other one says that she wishes she had gotten the vaccine. She's worried about me getting COVID and dying, and I keep telling her I'm fully vaccinated. If I get it, it's not going to be bad for the most part. I mean, only 0.5% of vaccinated people are ending up in the hospital. It's mostly a Republican illness because of all of the misinformation that is being passed, and it makes me very sad. Even Fox has vaccination requirements, says the Lincoln Project. Very, very true. I'm glad to hear that a lot of Republicans are telling people that they should get the vaccine now, and I'm very happy about that. Y'all Republicans out there, I'm not anti-Republican, okay? But I just feel that a lot of the leaders of the Republican Party have misguided you and have spread all this anti-vaccine nonsense. All one has to do is visit your local cemetery. There is probably a baby section. And if you look at all of the child graves before 1940, then you will realize that vaccines work. You know, that's what we had before vaccines. I mean, we have had the smallpox vaccine since the 1700s, and there were some articles about that I've read recently, that there were a lot of people not wanting the government to tell them to get a smallpox vaccine, but the U.S. government in its early days was telling people you need to get this in certain areas. So, you know, definitely. And I guess I should mention, since I'm a woman, about Governor Cuomo being in big trouble for sexual harassment. I have been a victim of sexual harassment in several workplaces, and I am happy to say that people listen to me, but I did have to quit one job because of this persistent guy, and I kept telling him, I showed him my wedding ring, I'm married, and he still bugged me. It's horrible, and it's more horrible when you're disabled and you get sexual harassment on top of that. So I want to hear from you. If you've had sexual harassment as a disabled person, please let me know in the chat. And I'm looking down to see. And Corey Bush I'm very proud of her for taking a stand about the homeless evictions. You know, it's horrible. The homeless problem in this country is horrible, and a lot of people out there with homelessness are disabled. Disabled veterans or disabled people who couldn't work anymore and they lost their place to live. We should all be looking at the homeless problem. The disability problem, that's 1 in 5. Oh no, don't do this to me. I hate this. I wish I could get rid of it. Oh, okay. Yeah, but the homeless problem, the incarceration problem, there's a lot of disabled people in jail when maybe they shouldn't have to be. I'm not talking about murderers or felons who did armed robbery or, people who are beating up people. I'm talking about people on drug possession. Oh, I've got a wire. Hang on. My wire is not plugged in and my computer's about to die, so let me get this. But it's all interconnected. Disability, homelessness, incarceration, social injustice. I mean, it's all interconnected. We need to start being a kinder, gentler people in this country. We need to take care of our handicapped people, our people of color, our LGBTQ plus community. We need to take care of people. You cannot put a dollar value on human life. We need to save all life. And I really think that we need to preserve our freedom of choice to have abortion. Now, I personally am against abortion. I would never go get one if I was in that boat. But as a person who did get one, I have regretted it every day of my life, and I would rather not have to live with that guilt. And I thought I had an easy decision because I was doing drugs. I was 19 and very dumb. I did not talk to my mother. I just took it upon myself to do this horrible thing, and I regret it. So, but I believe that we should defend women's rights to abortion because it is a woman's choice, ultimately, whether she carries a fetus or not. But I would ask all of you to be very careful with your birth control, even if you've told people, even if your doctor has told you that you can't have children, you should still be using birth control because if you are not ready for a baby in your life, it's easy to get birth control. It was often free for me. And I, made a mistake with the birth control, and that is why I got pregnant. I'm telling you, you don't want the lifetime guilt after aborting a child. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. And then I got it all back because I went on to have 3 miscarriages. I have 2 living girls whom I love very much, but because of, and I've had a lot of DNCs. That's a procedure where they scrape out your uterus and it increases your chances of miscarriage. So, I don't know the cause of most of my miscarriages, but, I don't agree with having abortions of late fetuses. I think it's horrible when there are so many people who want to carry a baby and can't have one. Why can't we have a national system to connect people who want babies with people who don't want babies and do something? There are fetal transplants, and there's research going on about embryo transplants. Why can't we freeze all the embryos that are taken out of people aborting and offer them to women who want a baby? This should be an available option to everyone, including the poor. You know, and the more research we do on it, the better we will get at it. We need to solve the problem with science. You know, that's my opinion. I don't think any babies should have to die. I don't think any mothers that don't want to to carry a baby should have to carry a baby. But we have the science to possibly take a fetus that someone doesn't want and implant it in somebody who wants a baby desperately, and have a way that people who can't have a baby themselves can find a surrogate. You know, it shouldn't be an option just for wealthy people. It should be for anyone that wants to add to their family. Everybody should have the privilege of raising a child if they want to. And everybody should have the privilege of not raising a child if they don't want to. So, that's how I feel about that, and I'm sure that's going to be controversial, but that's how I feel about it. I love babies. I just don't want to see any babies die. All right, so I am very happy that both parties are working together on um, the bill to the bipartisan infrastructure bill. I'm very happy about that. I am hoping that we will get the other bill through that doesn't have widespread Republican support, because we need rural internet. We need to have internet that works for everybody, especially for us disabled people. We are often cut off from everything, and having the internet is vital for us to keep track of what's happening in the world, to be able to sign petitions online, to get our rights heard in Congress. I mean, it is vital for us as disabled people. And it's also vital for all the children who are struggling to go to school despite racism and discriminatory practices, and getting the police involved when maybe they don't need to be involved. I'm looking at you, public schools. I had a lot of problems with you, and that is why I decided to homeschool my younger child. I feel like schools, as a low income, single mom, disabled mom, I had a lot of problems with schools wanting me to do fundraising for whatever. I was not able to do fundraising. Now, I did go with my daughter. I was walking with a cane then. I took a camp stool with me, and we had a very densely populated neighborhood in Provo, Utah. And yes, I walked from one apartment building to another. And because there were so many BYU students there, I was able to sit at the bottom of the stairwell and wait for her to go knock on doors. And that way, if she had made a peep, I could have heard it and ran up those steps. Adrenaline will do wonders for you, but I would not have wanted to. But I was not able to climb all those stairs and go with her. But she sold 740 boxes of Girl Scout cookies by herself at age 9. So, you know, disabled people can do things. They just have a higher price to pay for a lot of normal things. But I'm saying that that was a Herculean effort, and that was the only thing I could do that year. I paid for it royally. As far as the other things that I was asked to do fundraising about for the school, I was not motivated to do that because it was just a lot of work, and I resented it because the schools should get enough money from the government. They should. The average teacher is spending $400 of her own money to decorate her classroom. This is ridiculous. Why can't there be government funding for that? Local governments, in my opinion, are not responsible enough to fully fund their schools, and they are picky about what zip codes they fund. I think that the money should, there is federal money for low income students. My daughter benefited from the in school breakfast program, and I was very grateful for that. It took a lot of weight off me as a disabled person. But I think that they should expand federal funding for schools so that all schools get equal funding. It is ridiculous for a lot of these minority schools, which my daughter attended. They did not get funding for a lot of stuff that the richer schools were getting funding for. It's ridiculous. I think that a lot of school administrators are not very responsible in how they handle school things, especially during COVID. If you have affluent administrators, they're most likely going to be Republican. They're most likely not going to really believe in COVID. They're not going to be suggesting vaccinations. They are not going to take the CDC guidelines very seriously. And I think giving students a choice about whether to wear masks is ridiculous. Yes, we have First Amendment rights and we have other rights. But where public health is concerned, where people are dying, including children, we need to wear masks. And we need to be careful about the types of masks that we get. My daughter and I have just been concerned about the mask issue, and we are ordering new masks from Amazon that are 100% cotton. And we are hoping they're going to be nice quality, densely woven cotton, which, if it's not, there's a very interesting marketplace that was talking about it. So let me look that up. Marketplace, COVID masks. All right. This was November of 2020. I'm going to put this link in the chat because I think it's important. Now, where is it? Where is Twitch? There it is. Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat. Marketplace COVID-19 mask study. Now, Marketplace is out of Canada, but it's a very useful study. So I want y'all to see what I'm seeing. They tested a lot of different masks, and they concluded that definitely the 2-ply cotton was actually more effective than the 3-ply cotton. Why? Because the 2-ply cotton masks had a tighter weave. So you want to get a good quality cotton mask that has got the very tight weave, so it blocks the COVID particles. If it blocks 0.3 of a micron, that's good. So they have links, when you watched this video, and it's for lay people. It doesn't have a lot of highly technical jargon in there, so it's easy for everybody to understand. I try to have people-friendly sources. I read a lot of highfalutin things that have a lot of technical language in it because I'm a science fiction writer. You have to really research science fiction to have plausible things happen in your books and stories. So I am no stranger to research. I do it all the time. I do it every day. So, when I give you a source, though, I will give a user-friendly source because I used to also work in a library. I helped patrons when I worked in the reference department at Georgia State University. I was not a librarian. You have to have a master's degree to be a librarian. I don't have a master's degree. But I did have an interest in helping people, and I was working on a 4-year degree in psychology before I changed to computer information and stuff, and I didn't get to finish that degree because of my health. I mean, I've got 4 years of college, but I don't have a degree, which is sad. I have a 1-year Votech School certificate in business data processing. I wanted to get a doctorate, but I absolutely, with my health, I could not do what was required to get a 4.0 average. So I had to basically work and put myself through school. And my sister helped me out as much as she could. But when I was in school, she wasn't as famous as she is now. So, yeah, definitely a different ballgame. So, I wasn't able to finish school because of my health. I was going to BYU. That was the last school I attended. I was not able to walk across campus. I didn't have a power chair at the time, and there was no transportation service on campus for handicapped people. So I had to quit school because of it. And it broke my heart. I had my heart set on getting my 4-year degree, and I was so close. And now I'm not able to do any heavy duty online courses, so, it's just not possible now. My memory is not as good as it used to be. So, it's, and that has to do with the head injury I got at 9 years old. So, head injuries can have profound effects on you later in life, and I'm finding that I'm having problems because of it. I'm able to do research and do like articles, but I couldn't do a full course. No stamina for that. And it takes me an inordinate amount of time to memorize facts. So I can do the research for my books, and I can still write books, but as far as doing any significant research, like a term paper or things like that, that's a lot different than writing fiction where you just got snippets of fact here and there, and, rarely will I have a citation in my science fiction book. In fiction, you generally don't expect that when you pick up a science fiction book. So, mostly I have my universe, and I have checked out certain parts of it with people who are smarter than I am. But as far as, being able to do scholarly research or anything like that, I am not capable of that at this point. I'm 62 years old. Now, I may not look 62 to you, but I have a lot of, well, let me lean over this way. I have a lot of gray hairs. And let's see, there. So, the fact that my hair is mostly dark is really odd because my sister started going gray in her 20s. I'm just, people often thought I was 10 years younger than I was. So, I probably look like I'm in my 50s, but I'm 62. Yep, not shy about it. I earned all these gray hairs. I earned every one of them. So, So, let's talk more about disability. So, let me go back to Twitter if I can find it again. Let's see. Okay. Alrighty. And as far as breakthrough infections, yeah, there's a lot of breakthrough infections with the COVID vaccine. It does not mean the vaccine is ineffective, okay? It just means that the Delta variant is a lot more virus every time you talk, sneeze, shout, sing, than the Alpha variant, which is the one we started out with. That was the original UK variant. The World Health Organization decided it was kind of racist to name viruses after the country that they originated in. So now we have Greek letters, just like they go to after hurricanes when they run out of the list of names, then they start using the Greek alphabet. So that may be where you're more familiar with that. But, so the Delta variant is not the only variant out there. So I encourage everybody who is disabled to get the COVID vaccine. In fact, if you're not disabled and you're taking care of a disabled person, it's doubly important for you to get it. And in fact, we need everybody to get it because until we get to herd immunity, we are going to continue to have mask mandates, lockdowns, etc. And don't think you're going to see the last of it after COVID is over and gone, because there are more diseases waiting in the wings to become pandemics. We are in an era of pandemics. As we encroach on nature, tear down forests, and just people need places to live, so animals are displaced, and the close contact with these wild animals makes it very likely that there are more diseases that will jump species. So I know there's a lot of controversy about whether COVID-19 was created in a lab in Wuhan, China. It may be the case, but they can't prove it. It is very difficult to pinpoint where a pandemic comes from. In 1919, they called it the Spanish flu because they think it originated in Spain, but to this day, nobody knows where that strain of influenza came from. It's just very, very hard to trace a pandemic back to, okay, this was person one. This was person one. No, they can't do that. And they can look at the DNA of the virus and make some guesses as to where it came from. But the likelihood is that it came from bats, that the virus got transferred to pangolins, and pangolins are a delicacy in Wuhan, China. So they were keeping all these wild animals from different continents, right next to each other. In fact, droppings from one cage was going to another cage from an animal in a different part of the world. And when you bring all these animals from different parts of the world and you don't have it regulated because it's illegal trade, then you have problems. Diseases spread, and somebody probably ate one of the bats that had, or one of the pangolins that had the virus. So we can point to more likelihood. But when you're talking about pandemics and epidemiology, which is the study of pandemics, when you're talking about the transmissibility of diseases and things like that, you are trying to trace things that you don't have all the information. So you look at risk. And this is how insurance companies get the rate that you get, is because they look at the risk of certain things. So there are really no certainties, but there are higher and lower risk. And this is what an epidemiologist looks at. So the risk of COVID coming from animals is very, very high, while the risk of it coming from a lab in Wuhan where they were studying these kinds of diseases is low because of simply the rigors of scientific inquiry. If you've ever taken a chemistry course, I had two. And I had labs with it, and we had to be extremely careful when we were wiping up any spills. We had a procedure for if anybody got something in their eye. There was a shower right in the lab so that we could rinse off immediately. I mean, there are procedures in place in every lab internationally across the world to keep things from getting out of the lab. So, knowing what I do about the little lab at Kennesaw State University, where I went and had my chemistry courses, we had very strict rules on what we did. When we got out chemicals, we had to put them up immediately. We had to wear old clothes to the lab because even as carefully as we cleaned, there could be remnants of acid strong enough to eat holes in our blue jeans. So we were told to wear old clothes to the lab. Now, I'm telling you, no matter how careful you are at cleaning, there can be small amounts of very strong acids and other substances left on the counters. That's why people who work in labs wear those white coats over their clothing to protect it. So, they have routines for doctors and nurses to make sure that they don't bring diseases home to their families. So if you watch Dr. Mike, he talks about he undresses before he goes in the house so that he doesn't bring diseases from work as a doctor, as a family medicine doctor, home to people who might visit him. So definitely, how well you follow those procedures, however, we are human and humans make mistakes. So the risk goes up if you're not following the procedures properly. So this goes to, what about the CDC guidelines? The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, they are in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. And they are worldwide, they are famous worldwide because of their success in combating contagious disease in other countries. When there's an outbreak of Ebola, for example, in Africa, they will send a team out there to study it and to try to help the people contain it so it doesn't spread. And they've been very successful. We so far have only had one case ever of Ebola in the United States. So the procedures work. What we need to realize is that we need to follow them. So the CDC has rules on hand washing, on wearing a mask, and social distancing. These are techniques that have been used since 1919 and before, back when tuberculosis was the big danger in this country. I had a relative die in 1936 of tuberculosis, and many members of that family died. One died at 19 of tuberculosis, horrible disease. So people were used to wearing masks because they were afraid of tuberculosis and they didn't understand exactly how it spread. They didn't know a lot of the things that we know nowadays to prevent disease, but they were making their own face masks and they were wearing them. I still have some face masks that my mother wore as a nurse in nurses training and working at uh, a hospital in Atlanta that she worked at last before she hurt her back. So, you know, the social distancing, the masking, and the generally, washing your hands. These are the three pillars of not spreading disease. And this has been in effect for years. Doctors and nurses, it's the first thing they learn when they go to school for it. It's the first thing that anybody who's remotely connected with the health industry learns. When I was in college, I briefly changed my major to mental health. I learned how to take blood pressure, I learned how to listen with a stethoscope, and I learned all the stuff about hand washing and stuff like that. You have to be careful because hands collect everything. And if you don't have hands, if you're disabled and you use your feet for everything, then it same applies to your feet. It's very difficult to keep germs from getting from the limb you use into your mouth. So that's why it's so vital to clean your surfaces, clean your phone. Your phone touches your face, for Pete's sakes. Clean your earbuds, clean your computer, clean your phone. And if you use an iPad or a Kindle, clean it often, or a Nook, or whatever your device is. You need to clean them every day. Now, do I clean mine every day? I forget some days, but I'm trying to get into a routine where I clean it all every day and wipe off the keyboard and wipe off the screen, just to make sure that germs don't accumulate, to protect anybody who might come visit me. And I do wear masks when I go in public places. I have to when I go to the doctor, but I also, if I were to go in a store, I've been afraid to go in a store, to tell you the truth. So we've been in drive-thrus, but I have not personally been in the store very much since COVID broke out. Because even though I'm vaccinated, I'm still scared of getting the flu, getting colds, getting viruses. I just don't like to get sick. And they found during COVID that people with A and B positive blood have a higher risk from catching COVID and having complications from COVID. Let me link that for you. So, less robust immune system A and B blood type. Okay, and here we go. Okay, let's see. Blood group and immunity and risk of infection. Let's see. That's not it. Let's see. Let me find a good source. Let's see. It's the research on COVID. Let's see. Here's one on WebMD. Let's see. No, thank you. I'm looking at this. Let's see. Okay, this one. Hmm. All right, I'll tweak that. And let's see. Okay. And I'm putting that out on my Twitter also. So, oh, I've got somebody. Hi. Hi, the Demon UK. A snap? What's a snap? Um, I'm sorry, I was looking on the internet and not watching and narcolept. Hey, anything y'all want me to talk about? Oh, okay. Narcolept says, let's see. Um, yeah. Okay. Okay. I have a friend named Zach that is very disabled, and I want to know how to make him feel comfortable. Well, my advice would be um, to listen to him. You know, ask him how he feels and let him talk to you if he's able. If is communication easy, or does he have a hard time communicating? Uh, he can't speak. Wow. All right. Never talk about the person in front of the person. Always talk to the person. This is the first thing they taught me when I worked in Georgia Retardation Center in 1980. Never assume that someone can't hear you, but if they can't speak, does he have a board that he points to symbols on, or does he have another means of communicating? Um, you know, um, if you have a disability where you can't speak, I know that's got to be horribly frustrating. So, okay, you use pen and paper. So just be patient and give him time to write, because I know we talk faster than anybody can write. So it's really hard to wait while someone writes it out. But give him time to respond to one question before asking him another. Um, and, you know, um, Genitals 1990, please don't make comments like that. We want to keep this family friendly. Um, yeah, we're gonna not have your comments there. I'm sorry. Um, so, using pen and paper is slow, but at least he can tell you how he feels. And that's very, very good. Just be there for him and listen to him. And the way you're listening, is by pen and paper. So the listening process is going to be drawn out. But just be strong for him and have the patience to wait until he answers one question before you ask him another, and tell him you care often. That support is just really so important, to know you've got somebody watching your back. Thank you for talking to me. Okay. And thank y'all for being with me. Do you have other questions for me? And do you want me to talk about my disabilities? Because I have a bunch. And it's so important to be able to talk about these things, and especially if you're a concerned person. Are you disabled yourself, or you just have the disabled friend? Because if you have disabilities yourself, then you're kind of able to know, okay, so you're not disabled. So yeah, it's very hard for non-disabled people to understand us, because we tend to put on a happy face and say, oh, nothing's wrong, we're cool, we're fine, and we're not. We are so used to having a lot of negative input from people. Um, and, you know, um, Narcolep didn't say he had autism, but if he did have, that is definitely a disability. Mental health is also a disability. If you've got a diagnosis of any kind, it is a valid disability. Um, oh, okay, okay. Yeah, definitely. Mental illness is an issue, and it needs to be talked about, because so often mental illness has a stigma, especially in the US, but I know in other countries too. I have attention deficit disorder, and I also have a mental diagnosis. I am borderline personality disorder. So my emotions are out of control a lot. And that's, you know, whether you're diagnosed or not, you tend to know if you're different from other people. And that is a grief process because if you, well, let's not do any diagnosing here, okay? We are here to talk about disability, but we're not here to diagnose anybody because I'm certainly not. Autism is not a self-diagnosing issue, Sheeb. It's, there are ways that they can determine if somebody is autistic. Not necessarily, Sheep. You might not know. There are some times that I get really obsessive about things, and my daughter has to say, "Hey, Mom, you're doing it again." um, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna talk about that. Um, please do not use sexual terms or insults. This is not helpful to anybody here. So, I want to make clear that this is an accepting community. I don't want anybody to be arguing about whether, you sound like you're so and so. We are not qualified to diagnose anybody, okay? Um, Sheeb, you're welcome to listen. I'm sorry I had to mute you. But I don't want anybody cussing on this channel because I want to be family friendly. I want, if parents have children who are disabled, I want them all to be able to participate in the conversation. So please don't use any sexual references. So talking about disability, I suspect that I might be Aspie, but I have never been diagnosed as Aspie. So, yeah, it's sad that some people have those beliefs, but I think Hitler was totally wrong about, condemning Jews to die just because he didn't like them. That he had some mental issues, and that may have contributed a lot to, as far, let's see, the Demon UK, I'm not sure if that would be a disability. Political beliefs, people can be misled. And there are a lot of people who think that Hitler had the right idea and that, white racism is okay and all this stuff. I do not believe that way. And I think that it's sad that anybody would choose to follow Hitler's beliefs because it's not helpful. I think we should all have compassion for each other and everybody should be included in everything. I live in the USA and we have the right to, quote, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, unquote. I think that should apply to all people, no matter what their religious beliefs, no matter if they are LGBTQ. And I hope I got that right. I'm not good with these acronyms, but basically, you shouldn't have discrimination because of your sexual orientation, because of your disability, because of your, Just go to my Discord server here. I'll give the link to it. Let's see. Discord. Let me find it. Okay. Let me go to the Discord server. I'm not seeing the chat right now because I am going to Discord and I'm going to log in. Let's see. Okay. I'll get on the GrannyHandicap server. And alright, so basically I am ADMAEA 3641, and I will put that in here. Oh, set a server nickname. Let me just do that. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, let me come over here. There we go. Okay, so you just go to Discord. Okay, I don't know how to use it very well. But that is my Discord server, and you're welcome to join it and leave comments there, and I will go on and answer. I haven't quite got the audio thing. I'm 62 years old. It's taking me a while to figure out Discord, but I've got Twitch figured out, so I will figure out Discord, but anybody can go and join my Discord server. It is, I have two. I have ADMAEA and I have GrannyHandicap. GrannyHandicap is where you want to be. I don't know. If somebody's always walking up and down the room, if they might have hyperactivity, but it might just be that he was upset. They were upset. It might have. I am not a professional. I do not diagnose people, so I can just throw some ideas out there, but I'm not more qualified than you are. But the important thing to remember is if you see somebody doing a behavior that strikes you as odd, it's not your job to diagnose them. It's whether they are having problems in their daily life. Well, Narcolept, good night, and thank you for joining me. I appreciated the conversation. So, okay, but Demon UK, you know, behavior is a complex thing. I've had a few courses in psychology. That does not make me a therapist, psychologist, or anything of the sort. I do like psychology as a subject, and I think it's fascinating. But as far as diagnosing somebody just from you telling me an anecdote about them, even a psychologist would not be able to do that. A psychologist, if the person was having problems and went to a therapist, what they usually do at first is they take a complete history. They look at your medical history as well as your psychological history. Well, take care, Demon UK, and come visit me again. I'd love to talk to you. Take care. Okay. Very glad to give help. Okay. So let me look back and make sure I didn't miss anything. Alrighty. Okay. Okay. Well, I've taken care of all the questions for now, so I'll just keep talking about whatever disability topics. So, I'm very excited. I had 2 viewers. I'm excited. That's neat. So, I'm hoping to get more. I need to fix up my Facebook and have a notice go out to my Facebook when I'm going to be on live so that other people who have seen my posts that can come on and talk about disability. Cool. So, definitely, I'm not a therapist, but I do want to help people. And it's important to understand that when you see a behavior that kind of sticks in your head and it's like, what's this all about? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're mentally ill. It might just be they're very upset. They're, you know, I've known a lot of people who, when they got upset, would pace and would do, stuff like that. And that's, I think, pretty normal if you're upset to want to just do something physical to just get that emotion out. But as far as trying to figure out what's wrong with the person, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm very willing to answer questions about what's normal and what's not, and I have a good feel for that. But on the other hand, I'm not an expert, so you shouldn't take my advice as, hey, this is true. No, no. Because if I'm going to look up something, I'm very willing to find you a good source for something. So, if you have a question, I'll go on the internet and look it up right there and then and find you a good source about it and from an expert. So, I'm very good at research. So, I can help you with research while I'm online. But as far as diagnosing somebody, Google can't diagnose somebody. You have to have a therapist, somebody with a master's degree in psychology or social work, or a psychologist who has gone to school and gotten their master's or their doctorate. That's the people that should be diagnosing. And medical doctors can make a psychological diagnosis. That is very true. But they will refer somebody to a therapist. So, most doctors are very, very aware of what they can do medically and when somebody needs mental health. And there should not be the stigma attached to mental health that there is in my country and in a lot of countries. I wish that, you know, I wish that it was easier for people to get mental health care. I know in the UK they have nationalized medicine, which I think is great. I wish we had it in this country. We are the only country that does not have universal health care. And I think it's crazy because, especially with all of the mental health issues that are coming out because of COVID and having to be isolated, people who never had any mental issues ever are now seeking help from psychologists and other therapists because they are suffering from being isolated. It's terrible. As a disabled person, I deal with isolation pretty well because I'm here in my four walls most of the day, every day. I don't get a lot of visitors, so I started streaming because I wanted to make more contact with people for my mental health. And I like to dispel the myths about therapy. I have had a lot of therapy in my life. And so I can answer questions about what therapists do, what kind of therapists you should consider, as far as knowing a little bit about the field before you just start looking for a therapist and say, okay, well, what kind of therapist do I want? Because there's a lot of different kinds of therapy. So I would suggest learning a little bit about all the different kinds of therapy and decide which one's best for you. What's best for me might not be best for you, but I'm a fan of family therapy. I think if one member of the family is in therapy, the whole family ought to get involved. And that doesn't mean that, a lot of people fear therapy because they think the person is going to judge you or they're going to look inside your head and see things that they can't see. And it's mainly fear of the unknown. But what any therapist mostly is going to do when you first go in, they're going to take a history. They're going to look at your medical history because a lot of people are referred to psychologists because of medical problems that are either undiagnosed or they have been diagnosed, but maybe the doctor's not taking it seriously. And so they'll say, oh, it's all in your head, you need to go to a psychologist. Well, my psychologist told me, go back to your medical doctor and make him understand how much you hurt. Now, what's wrong with me? I have fibromyalgia, and it makes my body hurt all the time, and it's quite severe. It never goes away. It hurts from the time I open my eyes in the morning until I go to bed at night. But if you were a doctor looking at me, you would probably not see many, if any, pain signs because I'm very good at hiding it. So I try not to hide it when I go to the doctor, but I'm not always very successful because there's that fear. And I also am afraid of guys. I was sexually abused, so I have some problems from that. And I have had PTSD. So, there's a lot of stuff that can affect you temporarily. PTSD can be a permanent disability or it can be just a situational thing. And once you get out of the situation, it improves. So, it depends on how severe it is. And with anything, mental diagnoses, it's how bad is it? Because someone with a mild version of what you have may not be experiencing nearly the troubles with normal life as someone who's got a severe case of it. And some of us don't even know how severe, you know. So there's physical disability and there's mental disability. But it doesn't matter what the disability is. There are a few generalizations that you can make about disability in general. So you can say that generally anybody with any disability is going to have some trouble appearing normal. And being able to appear normal will affect how well you function in society. And this is a sad fact. I'm very high functioning, so people don't think I'm disabled. Which gives me problems when I need help. Hey, help! So, I've dealt with that all my life. Long before any diagnosis, I knew something was wrong as a child. I used to be in bed 7 years old crying because I had these horrible leg cramps. And Mama said, "Oh, it's growing pains. You'll grow out of it." I didn't grow out of it, Mama. I'm 62 and I still have those pains. So, you know. But one thing that helps me with my multi-handicaps, physical and mental, is to try to keep a good attitude. Because if you let that depression drag you down, and I'm not saying if you're depressed that you let something happen. No, 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 no. I'm not meaning to imply that. But I have depression that is light enough that I can prevent it. I can prevent it from dragging me down. So my situation is different. There are a lot of people I have known with depression that you can't stop it from dragging you down. And it's very dangerous when that happens. So if you are depressed, there's different levels of depression, okay, from just being a little bit blue to you feel bad, you feel tired, you can't hardly get your body to move, to staying in bed all the time, not wanting to get up, wanting to sleep all the time, wanting to just escape from it. And then the bottom of that is thinking about depression, having a method for suicide, thinking about suicide, having a method for it and planning it out. Now, when you get to that point, it's time to call that hotline and say, "Help." But before you get to that point, it's a very good idea to just call that hotline. Don't wait until it gets so bad that you're thinking about killing yourself. There are many hotlines, and they are suicide hotlines, and I think a lot of people that could benefit from talking to someone on one of those lines, they see the word suicide and it's like, well, I'm not suicidal yet. I'm down. I'm having problems. If you're having problems, pick up the phone. If you haven't got anybody you can talk to, it's life-saving. Don't worry about whether you're suicidal or not. If you are really depressed, if you just can't get interested in things, it's time to pick up that phone. And if you want to be anonymous, you can be anonymous. But they will give you some ideas that you might be able to take, and they might work for you. There's tools in their toolbox that they can give you over the phone. There are self-esteem building activities, and if you take it seriously, they'll probably give you some websites to go to. You can download some forms, fill out some questions, and get some information for yourself that you can use to help yourself. There are a lot of things in something called cognitive behavioral therapy that can help you. So, if you are worried about your mental health and if things are getting worse and you're just feeling hopeless, it takes a lot of courage to pick up that phone and talk to somebody, but it is well worth it. I knew about those hotlines when I was suicidal. I made 5 serious suicide attempts. And let me tell you, I probably could have avoided that by getting some help. So don't put your family through it, because what shocked me so much, I didn't think my family cared that much. And to find out how much they were freaking out because I was considering suicide really got to me. It's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? So it's very important to realize when you're deeply depressed and you are considering suicide, it's like you just don't want to hear that people care about you. It's like there's a wall, and you are convincing yourself that you need to die and that nobody can help you, and you push your family away. This is part of the process. And if you talk to somebody on one of those hotlines, maybe they can help you break that wall down, because nobody exists in a vacuum. Oh, that's what it is. Um, my TV is causing that. Okay, that's where that blue is coming from. So I think I will just turn that off. And then, yeah, now I'm not purple anymore. But seriously, get help if you are feeling that down, that you lose interest in things and you start thinking that maybe you'd be better off dead. Think of your family. Oh my gosh, because it's easy to convince yourself, my family doesn't care, and my family cared very much. And they helped me through it. But I had to reach out to them and let them know that I was thinking about these things before they could help me. And for a long time, I just held it in. I just kept it there. I just tried to hold all my emotions in. And then every once in a while, I was Mount St. Denis. I was exploding and feeling awful about it. You can't hold all that emotion in. Eventually, the dam will break. And when it does, it explodes all over the persons closest to you, your family, your close friends. It's a terrible feeling. Then that makes you feel even worse, and then the cycle goes even lower. So, it's better to get some help now if you're in that boat. So I want to make that clear. Depression is a handicap. Mental health issues are a big handicap. And people tend to think that, people with mental illness, they don't belong on disability. They're able-bodied. They're able to walk around and do stuff. Well, if they're not able to function in a workplace, it's just as bad of a disability as somebody who can't use their body to work. And the feelings are often the same. You get that disability, and then you have validation that, yes, you're too disabled to work, and it does horrible things with your mind. When I won my disability case, I went out of there just sobbing. I was a mess for months. And that was expecting hoping that I would get it and I would have an income and not be out on the street with a daughter. But it really, disability messes with your head. So if you have any physical disability at all, or any disability that affects your thinking, your rationality, your emotional part of you, anything that disrupts normal life, it is worth treating yourself to therapy. And don't be afraid of therapy, because a therapist is just going to listen to you. Once they get that initial history, the next step is to listen to you and to suggest things that you can do for yourself. And you are free to reject any of them. If you don't want to fill out forms, you can say, I don't want to fill out forms. I don't want to do this, and that's fine. Let's try something else. There are so many things that a psychologist or a therapist can suggest for you to help you that, if you don't like one method, they can try another method. So it's all in your choice. That ballpark, that is your choice. It is all in here, You can accept or reject whatever the therapist says, and if you can't get along with your therapist, you can change therapists. Now, I don't suggest this lightly because sometimes when you're getting to the heart of your problems mentally, sometimes there's a lot of anger, and that will come out at your therapist sometimes. So you just got to realize that sometimes that conflict with the therapist is part of the therapy. But if you really feel like that you're not being listened to, or that your issues are not being addressed, just like with your medical doctor, you can go to a different psychologist or psychiatrist. If you're getting medication, you have to get that from a psychiatrist who's an MD first, and then they specialize in psychiatry. So you have choices here. You're never going to have your free will taken away from you by a therapist. If they're a good therapist. I will say that there are people who've had bad experiences with one therapist and they've sworn off therapy altogether. But keep in mind that there are worlds of different philosophies about how to help a person with mental illness. And so there's Freudian, there's humanists, there's all sorts of types of therapy. Too many for me to go into in my little live stream. But all I'm saying is that if your therapist is mainly Freudian and you need a humanist, you're not going to get along with that therapist until you find a humanist. So it's worth it to you to go to the American Psychological Association and do a little reading. So let me put that link up there. All right, come on. So I'm going to go to APA. Types of therapy. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right, here's a very good article on it, and it's short. This gives you a little idea of what the basic therapies are. For mental health. And there it is. Boom. Okay, so if you're more interested in finding out about therapy and what's involved, then you can go there. But please don't try to diagnose your friends. There is a manual that is about this thick that psychologists have to learn what points them to a diagnosis. So the field of mental health is large, and I am not qualified to tell you what kind of therapy you need or anything like that. I can tell you what therapy is like, and that I've had therapists that I could get along with, and for the most part, most of the therapists I've had have been very helpful to me. But I had one or two that I really couldn't get along with. And also, I prefer a lady therapist because I was sexually abused by a man. And so I tend to, it's hard for me to see men, my medical primary doctor is a female. most of the doctors I see are female, and I do have problems of being afraid of the male ones. It's just my thing, y'all. There's nothing wrong with male doctors, male therapists. And I have been helped by a male therapist, but generally I try to get a female when I can. But I'm not in therapy now. But the last therapy I was in was actually a 6-week wellness course of cognitive behavioral therapy, and I loved it. And I'm still practicing a lot of the stuff in there. So even with my broad therapy experience, I really benefited from that 6-week course, which is available to everyone, not just mentally ill people. So definitely, if your insurance company offers any kind of thing like that, I would strongly suggest that you try it, because it's a journey of self-exploration. The inner mind is a fascinating thing to look into, and um, so uh, let me find you a resource here. Let's see. All right, let me go down here to cognitive. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't want that. I want videos. Let's see. That's. Uh, let's see. Let me go here. More patience. All right. Yeah, here we go. Here's a good link. Okay. So, if you want to know more about cognitive behavioral therapy, I have a good article here written for families. So, that's family friendly. So, there's you a link there. And that way, you can generally, um, cognitive behavioral therapy can be used for many, many things, like PTSD. You may be familiar that a lot of military, when they get out of battle situations, they'll have PTSD where they're, kind of scared at home and maybe, wake up a lot in the night scared and sweating and pale and shaking because of that fear that is from something they experienced, and they relive that experience. So, a lot of people develop PTSD as abuse can give you PTSD. So, it's good to know a little bit about, PTSD responds very well to cognitive behavioral therapy. And my condition, being borderline um, personality disorder, it responds to cognitive behavioral therapy and other, there's not a lot that they can do medication wise for this condition. If I was manic depressive, they might put me on something like lithium, but generally for for borderline personality disorder, which I have, they don't usually go to medication as a help for it. They usually, it's kind of like manic depressive, except your emotions swing a lot more frequently than somebody who's manic depressive, where it might flip flop from mania to depression every 6 months or so. And with mine, it can be hourly, depending on what upsets me and what doesn't. But, when I get upset, it's hard to let go of it. So that can be difficult. You can ask my daughter. It's probably very difficult for her. But, now that I know what's wrong, at least I can, learn more about it and cope with it better. And now when I go off the handle, it's like, oh, it's my borderline personality disorder acting up again. I just need to calm down, do some meditation, and just relax. It's going to be okay. It's not going to last long, you know. So I have coping behaviors that I do. But I also want to talk about physical disabilities. I have a lot of trouble walking. I will tell my foot to go here, and it will go way over there, and so it'll cause me to fall. So I walk holding on to things, and it's very difficult because I do use a wheelchair a lot, and a lot of lay people see me getting up out of a wheelchair and they're saying, "Oh, you don't need a wheelchair. You can get up. Your legs work." Well, there are a lot of reasons why you might need to use a wheelchair. If you have a stay in the hospital, they usually take you downstairs in a wheelchair because they don't want you to fall and hurt yourself if you're feeling weak. And I feel weak a lot, and I have a lot of pain. I have fibromyalgia, so I have constant pain. I have other medical conditions like asthma, which put me more at risk for lung infections and stuff like that. So, I have physical disabilities and I have mental ones, and I have ADD, which I suppose counts as a physical disability because it's a disruption of brain chemistry. That's why they often give stimulants to children, because they work the opposite of what they would do to an adult. So, they have to use different medications on teenagers depending on where they are in that spectrum between children and adults when it flip-flops. Children have opposite effects on a lot of things. You give a kid Benadryl for an allergy and they're likely to get very hyper instead of being sleepy. You give an adult Benadryl and they're going to be sleepy. In fact, Benadryl is in a lot, the chemical that's in Benadryl is in a lot of sleep aid medications that you get over the counter because it works very well on most people to make them sleep. But for kids, it makes them hyper. And you don't give nearly as much because medications are given by weight. So how much you weigh has a large bearing on how well drugs are going to work for you. So a doctor has to know these things and take them into account. If you're an older person, I'm a senior at 62, I will be elderly at 65. A person my age has to, getting unplugged by the kitty. Hello, kitty. She's sitting right behind the computer. But if you're an older person like me, things like alcohol affect you a lot more. It's like it's more potent as you get older. So elderly people who drink have to watch their amounts because it's a lot easier to turn alcoholic because it's affecting you more than it would affect a younger person. So things like this are very important for sons and daughters of um, people who are older to realize that a medicine you're taking over the counter is going to affect you less than it will the average senior or elderly person. So be careful about offering mom or dad some of your medicine because, they need to be careful. If you're on 7 medications, well, in fact, if you're on over 3 prescription medications, they can't predict side effects. Pharmacists have a software that they run all people's prescriptions through to predict side effects. And above 3, they don't work. Guess what? I take more than 3. So they can't predict side effects on me. My doctor is dependent on me to tell her if I'm having problems. So, that's why you really need to communicate with your doctor and you need to let him or her know exactly what's going on with you, especially when you have your annual physical. If you're pretty healthy, you may not see your doctor more than once a year. I have to see mine every 3 months because I'm on prescription medication. So they take blood work every 6 months, maybe. So I have to go to the doctor oftener than a younger person. And part of that is to catch side effects before they do damage to organs. So, with most prescription meds, you do have time. You'll see changes in the blood work that will clue a doctor in to whether a medication is harming your internal organs. There are things that happen, there are little signals that your internal organs put out. So, there's a lot of stuff to know, and that's why you shouldn't be your own doctor. They don't go to 8 years of school just to fool around. They learn a whole lot, and the reason that there are more specialists nowadays is because there's an awful lot more to know. So, okay, I've talked about that. Let's go back to Twitter and I'll see what disability news there is. So let me go here. I'll just bring that up. Let's see. Oh, we should probably talk about let's see. Alrighty. I'd like to congratulate Simone Biles on her Olympic win. Now, Simone Biles is an interesting story. Here's a black person who, because of all the pressure and the persecution that she had, she just had to take a mental health break. And maybe a lot of people were mad about that because that hurt the U.S. team but in the Olympics. But you got to consider that mental health is important. And any athlete at that level has just killer pressure on them. They're just being squeezed horribly. So I don't blame poor Simone for dropping out for a little bit. And I'm so happy she was able to spring back and get that bronze, because I know that must have been awfully hard for her. As a white person, we have to consider, if we're white, we don't have the constant stress of hearing racial slurs against us on the street. Now, I can speak to this. I used to work at University of Utah Library. We got cubicles. We had a big open space with desks, and we got cubicles. Well, people would stand right outside my cubicle, and you can hear every single whisper. There is no way to talk quietly outside a cubicle. The person inside hears every single word. And I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. People call us Mormons. Now, we're not the Mormons that still practice polygamy and have all the sexual abuse and all that. That's not us. That's the Reformed Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And believe me, they didn't reform anything. They just disagreed. When Utah became a state in 1898, we gave up polygamy because we didn't need to do it anymore. Women had the right to own property, and that is the only reason that we had polygamy in the first place, because there was no law to protect a widow from people coming and taking all her property away. It was legal. So that was the reason in our church for polygamy. So since 1898, our church has not practiced it. We have followed the law. When Utah became a state, we followed the laws and we are legal. So when I say Mormon, don't think about those reality shows, because that's not us. That is a sect that split off because they were mad that they couldn't have multiple wives anymore. So, anyway, in my church, we get a lot of persecution. We have temples. People who don't have a temple recommend can't enter the temple. You can enter a visitor center near one, but you cannot go in. And so some people feel like their rights are being infringed on because they're not allowed in the temple. But we have to prepare for a year to go in the temple. It's not something we can just do as a new member either. So, because there's a lot to know spiritually to prepare yourself and to be righteous before the Lord, and, just following the 10 Commandments. And there's a few little other things that we have to follow. So it's not like there's anything so top secret that goes on in there that people can't go in there. No, it's a matter of being spiritually prepared. And you're not perfect when you go and have your ordinances done in the temple. It's just a step up the spiritual ladder. So you have to earn that. You can't just go. So, people were standing outside my cubicle saying bad things about Mormons. And I had to sit there and listen to it. And I would go home and cry. It was horrible. Being under that much stress just was killer for me. I think that I got disabled sooner because of it, because, your mind and your body are connected. It doesn't just end at the neck. There are things that happen to you from high stress that will affect your body. So, having that persecution really just hurt my self-esteem awfully. So I can sure understand anybody who has a different skin color and hearing all those racial slurs that people throw at you. It's awful. Nobody should have to go through that. So that's why I am all about inclusion. I am all about equal rights, not just rights that seem equal but aren't. And living in the South, I have seen so much of that, enough to make me sick. So I feel for anybody who is a person of color who has discrimination going on, because I've been there, and let me tell you, it's a horrible place to be. You can be happy despite it, but it does put stress on you, and it's killer stress. So no wonder so many Black people have young strokes, young heart attacks. They have so many things wrong with them. And the access to medical care is not the same. It makes me sick. It really does. I don't feel guilty for being white. I'm white. Hey, I'm more white than most white people. But I don't think I'm better than anybody else because I'm white, but I do enjoy white privilege that Black people don't have. And if you don't have Black friends, or if you don't have friends who are gay, or you don't have friends who are a different religion, you do not know that this persecution is going on, but it is real and it hurts. So I'm asking you to join with me and stand up and say all people deserve rights, and you can't put a price tag on human life. So I'll be talking more about this as we go on, and I'm very happy to have had some folks come on and talk to me today. This is very gratifying. I have not had any conversations doing the gaming thing, so this is going to be a permanent thing. I'm going to get on Twitch 6 days a week, and I'm just going to talk to folks, whoever wants to come and whatever opinions they want to express. I did have to block a couple of people for bad language and for saying mean things, and I'm sorry I had to do that, but I want this to be a safe place for people. So forgive me if I give them a few minutes before blocking them, because I want to try to talk to them and ask them not to do that. But if they are going to continue it, I will block them, because I don't want the people who are here trying to be nice to be hurt. I'm all about everybody. If you've got a disability, or if you know somebody with a disability, please come talk. Let's talk. Because communication is what helps grease things along. It makes everything better, especially whether you've got physical handicaps or whether you've got mental handicaps. It's so important just to have a community you can come to and not be attacked. So y'all take care. I'm going to end my live stream at 10 o'clock. So I'll give a couple more minutes if anybody wants to get on. And if not, I will see you tomorrow night. Because it's Tuesday night. It'll be Wednesday night tomorrow. And I hope that none of you have anybody with COVID in the hospital. I have 2 right now, and it's just tearing me apart. I hope you will go and get a COVID vaccine, because of the two relatives I've got in the hospital, I haven't been able to talk to one of them because he was too sick. And he is dying, so I am expecting to get that dreaded phone call. The other one is very sick, and she says she regrets not getting the vaccine and she wishes that she had gotten it. And even though I've told her repeatedly, I got the vaccine as soon as I could. I got one shot in April and one shot in May. And my daughter, shortly thereafter, got both shots. I got Pfizer and she got Moderna. But she still keeps telling me, get a shot, get a shot. And she's a staunch Republican. And I blame the Republican Party for her and her husband being in this mess. Let me tell you, I don't make any bones about it. I am angry at those in government who lied about this thing and said, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not, and I've seen the death count go up. Those bodies and that blood is on the Republican Party. Now, if you're a Republican, I don't blame you personally because you've just been misled by these people. I'm talking about the people who spread these lies and got y'all all upset. I think it's awful to get all these elders upset. I have a lot of respect for old people, and now and I really understand it. But I think it's awful that because of this misinformation campaign, we are losing so many people every day and families are being hurt. It just tears me up. So I'm begging, y'all, please get your COVID vaccine. If you have hung out with me to the very end and you are hearing this, please get a COVID vaccine. They are safe. They are available. And I didn't even feel my shot much. Now, I'm very sensitive to pain. Having fibromyalgia, everything hurts me more than most normal people. But the shot did not hurt that bad. It does hurt to have a needle pushed in your arm, but really it's not that bad. And if I, who's really sensitive to pain, can say that, I want you to, I hope that carries a little weight. I did get a little sick from the vaccine for a few days because I have B positive blood, and anybody with A or B blood is going to fare a little worse because our immune systems aren't as good. But, it's so important. I've seen the suffering that these two relatives have gone through in the hospital. I can't even go see them because we've had something going on. It may be COVID, it may not be. We're getting a second COVID test tomorrow to see if it's COVID or if it's just a cold. But whatever it is, we can't go see my relatives in the hospital. And my relative that I'm in touch with was talking about having a funeral online for her husband because none of us are going to be able to go. It's very sad in this time of COVID that we are having this, and this is the first time that COVID has touched me personally. But I've been saying all along that people need to get vaccinated. There is no reason for this carnage that is going on right now. These two people are dear to me, and if they had gotten the vaccine, they probably wouldn't have had such a rough time in the hospital. They're older, so, they might have ended up in the hospital anyway, but it's a horrible way to go, folks. It's horrible. And the things that my relative is going through, it's heartbreaking. So I'm begging you, please, make that appointment ASAP. Do not put it off. Get your vaccination. This is preventable. And as somebody who's done genealogy for years, you go in enough cemeteries and you see the number of child graves. It's horrible. So I'm saying to those of you who are anti-vaxxers, please do a little more research. Don't use your usual sources, because the internet tends to measure what you look at and give you more of that. Go outside your comfort zone. Do a little research. You were taught in school to do quality research, in high school, in college. Please remember what you were taught and go to good sources. Find out about vaccines and find out what happens if your kid gets measles or mumps and how they might get brain damage. There are worse things than dying. So please, get vaccines. Protect your kids. And especially when the vaccine comes out for younger children, please consider giving it to them. My friend, the CNA, had, she works at a pediatrician's office. And we already had one child to die in that pediatrician's office. I'm telling you, those parents are probably devastated. And maybe getting vaccinated wouldn't have saved that child. That child was 5 years old. I'm telling you, when you get ready to send your kids back to school, think about that. Make sure that these school officials that you're dealing with are taking this thing deadly seriously. Because even though the percentages are small for children dying of COVID, they're still there. And there are kids getting heart failure. There are kids getting brain damage. There are kids getting damage to other internal organs. This is not like a cold or the flu. It is much more dangerous. And COVID, the Delta variant, is incredibly contagious. Think about chickenpox. It's as contagious as chickenpox. Wear your mask. Make sure your school is having masking going on and social distancing, and make sure they've got one of those UV things in their ducts, and make sure they're opening windows when they can, because this stuff is real. Don't be afraid of your taxes going up. If your kid's not there, then what good is money? You don't want to lose your child. I've lost 4 children that I wanted. It's devastating. Nothing in your life prepares you for the death of a child. Please, get vaccinated. Make sure your school is taking all the precautions. Go in there and check. Don't take their word for it. Ask your kid what's going on. Your kid will tell you. So I'm going to let it go here. I don't have anybody asking me any questions, so I am going to leave it with you, and tomorrow I will be back, and I'll be bringing up some issues, and I'll be putting some links in the chat, and this video will be a recording on YouTube on the Dana Stories channel. So I'm making a little change here. It won't be on ADMA, it will be on Dana Stories. So y'all take care and be safe. Be safe. Love you. Bye-bye.